Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about using speed work to bridge the gap between our max effort work and our hypertrophy work. And again, this is without getting into the whole concept of rate of force production or any of that or why we do that. We're talking purely from a programming and a recovery side. And yes, I do think there are merits to the other point, but for some reason, anytime you bring that point up, everyone wants to argue against it and use it to debunk the entire idea of speed work purely because they don't think rate of force production matters in powerlifting. Okay? Because that's what they believe. So therefore, every time you bring that up, people want to try to debunk it. So instead, let's discuss the other end of it. And something I have noticed consistently is that when I program dynamic effort days for my lifters, we get bigger and stronger faster, not dramatically so, but slightly so, and my lifters just get less beat up, right? Recovery tends to be better. And the thing that we have to remember is that even though speed work can be very difficult while we're doing it, like I personally would much rather, in terms of a training session, I would rather hit a max. I would much rather hit a max anytime. It's less fatiguing, it's easier, and it's a lot more fun for me personally. But when we look at speed work, one of the things that we have to factor in is that it does a number of different things in the middle of our programming. So, let's say bench pressing here. Let's say every week we have a max effort bench day and a dynamic effort bench day, right? Out of our 4 training days each week. Well, on the max effort day, we've exerted maximum effort on a lift. We've hit a pretty heavy bench press or a press variation of some type, and that creates a certain type of fatigue. And what you start finding is that once lifters get relatively strong, in order to replicate that performance, they need a little bit of time. One of the things I have found as I got stronger on a lot of this is that too many max effort sessions in a week, it becomes difficult to replicate it. Just like when I ran Bulgarian at that one time, you start to hurt all the time. And it's not that it impacts the performance the rest of the workout. If anything, we know based on the data, max effort training attenuates better performance on your subsequent sets. There's actually research showing that on your rep work. Okay, so it's actually quite good even for hypertrophy in that sense. But this is how we learn to strain. This is how we learn to move max loads. But we have a limited amount of it that we can handle every week. And that's usually about 2 or 3 lifts. That's it. Conversely, when we do the speed work on the other days, it doesn't matter if we recovered on that end from the max work because we're using light weights. And what we're doing multiple sets with light weights for 2 to 3 reps. In some cases, 1 rep, depending on how we're deadlifting, but usually 2 or 3 reps. And what ends up happening as we do this, we are pushing with maximum force, again, with straight weight or preferably with bands or chains if we have them. We're pressing with maximum force. We're practicing pushing or pulling with as much force as possible for a lot more reps than we get on a max effort day. Okay, that's one of the things to factor in. All right, it helps you practice the max work. It helps you practice because you are still trying to push as hard as you do when you hit a max, even if you're doing 9 triples. Okay, so it carries over in that regard, but it doesn't use the same energy systems and it doesn't beat up your recovery the same way. It's very taxing while you're doing it, particularly cardiovascularly taxing. However, the performance doesn't interfere. And conversely, when you go to max later in the week, it doesn't act like another max effort day the next week when you go to train in terms of the recovery. So it allows you to do that. And what it also does, it allows us to practice setting up the movement, setting up unracking, getting more first reps in. Because again, if you're doing 6 doubles, 8 doubles, 9 triples, 10 doubles, whatever you happen to be doing, whatever your modality is, you're getting somewhere between 6 and 10 first reps. Okay, and if you use the speed work correctly, you're using it to get tight, using it to practice setting up your arch, setting up unracking, right? You're going through all the motions that you would on a max lift, but you're doing it quickly and repeatedly with short breaks over and over and over. All right, this ingrains good habits. This ingrains, if you do it correctly, you get a lot of practice on the setup, so that when you go to set up on a max, you're used to getting the squat out. You're used to setting your feet, you're used to setting a bar on your back correctly. You're used to setting up the brace over and over and over with short breaks. And because your breath is low, your heart rate's up, with these shorter breaks doing this, you're having to do it quickly. You're having to learn to do it instinctively. Okay, that's a very big deal. So when we look at those things, it lets us practice a lot of the things on the max training. There is definitely going to be technique carryover. All right. And then the other things, what about the conditioning side? Max speed work will help get you into shape. Right? Now, ideally, you're complementing it with GPP, but it does help get you into shape with those short breaks and the maximum exertion. Okay? And in fact, we would argue you need to be fit to some degree to even do it correctly. But I've seen lifters who had no conditioning, did no cardio, no GPP, come in and try to do speed work as it's programmed, and they're out of breath, they're dying. Sometimes by the third or fourth set, they're halfway through, they're on the ground panting. Or they've got to lay down at the end of it. Because, again, it taxes you that hard. And then what about the hypertrophic end? Okay, that's the other big deal also. Because we are accruing fatigue in major muscles. I mean, what are we doing with speed work? We're doing variations of the squat, bench, and deadlift. These are big exercises. When you start looking at the number of reps we're getting and the fact that you are hitting upper threshold fibers, the short breaks start adding up and adding up and adding up. So much so that they almost count as hypertrophy work. And I think we could make a fair case that a speed work session, I think it's fair to count it as 2 or 3 sets of hypertrophy. I personally think it is. So, if you do something like 9 sets of speed bench, I think it counts as about 3 sets for hypertrophy. I mean, the lifters get thicker doing it. I've known of people who don't even do that much supplemental work. They'll run conjugate methods like this. They'll use the bands chain, specialty bars, they'll rotate, and I've seen a few people who do very minimal accessory work, and they still get bigger, and they still get stronger. So it goes to show that there's probably something to that. And again, if you look at it, there should be, based upon what we know about fatigue in the body. Does it count perfect as a set for set? No, obviously not. But it definitely has some hypertrophy, and it definitely is creating fatigue, and it definitely is, again, recruiting all these available motor units and muscle fibers. So that's also something that it adds to. So really, when you look at it, it's kind of like something that bridges everything together, that allows you to get more training in that's easy to recover from, that doesn't seem to interfere with the other training modalities that you're doing through the week. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.